Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. And today we have a special guest, Lina Aristizabal. Welcome to the Nerds podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You guys know that when I find awesome humans, I want to share them with you. And we're going to learn more about Lina's story today and who she is. Don't worry, I'm going to read her bio to you in a second because it's really great. But Lina is also, she's inspirational. And sometimes when you are on this journey and it feels like it's taking forever, and full disclosure, she will share, she's still on her own healing journey as well. But magical things can happen along this process, and beautiful moments can happen along this process. And life can still happen on the healing journey process. And so when I get the chance to meet really awesome humans who are exuding that and demonstrating that and can show you that, and them just living their lives, they're leading by example, and seeing them gives you hope. I want you to meet these people. And so that's Lina. And so Lina is, I'm going to read her bio here. So Lina is a well-being coach and resilience educator. She's dedicated to helping individuals thrive after adversity. After sustaining a concussion in 2018, she turned to science-based well-being strategies to, I love this sentence, to rebuild her own joy and purpose. She holds degrees from Buffalo State University of New York, the University of Toronto, Nipissing, is that right?
Nipissing, yeah.
Nipissing. Yeah, I'm like,
Nipissing
that's a new one
University.
for me. University, alongside certifications in applied positive psychology, resilience training, and coaching. She is the co-founder of Revive and Thrive Wellbeing, and she helps create programs that help individuals flourish despite health challenges. Lina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Natasha, for having me.
So, full disclosure, I'm just going to give you a sneak peek to the end. Lina wrote a book, and I love the title of it. It is called Raise Your Head Up, the No-Nonsense Guide to Getting Your Life Back After Concussion. And there is both a reading version, and I asked her already. Yes, my friends, there is an audio version as well. She knows better. She knows. But Lina, I would love for you to introduce yourself to my audience. Who are you? So if I had to say to you, who is Lina today? Who are you?
I am someone who, after a difficult part of, and I get into this in the book, life was challenging even before the concussion. And right when just the timing of the concussion really struck me really hard, so to speak. But I've overcome a lot of adversity, especially around my health. And I've come to this place of completely new appreciation and perspective on life. I did my studies, I learned all about well-being science, and it really I've come to a place where, not everything happy and shiny by any means, but I find so much joy in everything that I'm doing. There's so much purpose to what I'm doing, and I put my attention on where I want to put my attention. And that is one of the things that keeps me in a place of joy despite what's going on around me.
That is beautiful. Oh my goodness. When you say well-being science, what is that?
Mm-hmm. So I got trained in applied positive psychology, and that's really it's a field within psychology, but it was really looking at what are the tools that support humans to thrive, to actually flourish, to move beyond neutral. When we talk about positive psychology, it's like traditional psychology was focused on removing the disorder or what's wrong with people, and positive psychology is a little bit more around what are the things we can do and focusing on moving north of neutral, on actually focusing on building what's good. What do happy people have in their lives? What are the things that actually help us to just feel better, to feel more connected, to connect to purpose, those types of things. So there's a number of elements to it around the research, but on a basic level, that's it.
Okay. How far into your own concussion recovery did you start diving into this aspect of positive psychology?
Mm-hmm. So that's a really interesting point, and I address it in my story because I actually started my training before that, and that was related to the challenges that I was living before that. I experienced Lyme disease, which is another really complex illness, and it affected my health in a ton of ways and my emotional health. So That's where I was. So I had already had a lot of the training, but what was interesting with the brain injury, with the concussion, was I felt like I wasn't using or practicing the tools because I was so mad. Like there was a point of a good year and a half, complete, not denial, but like, no, this can't be happening. Like I'd
Mm.
already had a number of challenging years and I wasn't where I wanted to be in my life. I didn't have the friends, all of these different things that I was starting to get ready to have. And then this happened. So I was mad and I wasn't accepting the situation. And it wasn't until almost 2 years, and it was like a year and a half in, and I was feeling really low. And a couple of things happened. One was a friend of mine who actually I kept talking about. I did have a friend, I had some friends, and I had kept talking about like when I get better, when I get better, when I get better.
Mm.
And
That's a
they made a
lot.
comment of like, you don't know how long that's going to take. Like, why don't you start doing the things now? And that was a very powerful statement for me because I realized I was just completely like putting everything on hold. And that clicked for me. And then I started to like, hey, I have tools. How about I actually start using them? And that's when a lot of that started to happen. Like the shifts in my emotional state day to day started to happen because I started to apply the tools once I had kind of stopped being angry and started to just
Mhm.
accept, like, I don't know how long this is going to take, right? This is just what's going on right now. Another little thing that happened after a particularly challenging doctor's visit, we know that happens. I was gifted or by clinics some sessions with a social worker, and one of the things that the social worker had said, because I had started to have an idea of wanting to support other concussion survivors. So this is now a little bit
Okay.
after starting to use the tools and be like, oh my gosh, the tools work. Like we got to share the tools. The tools really work. And the social worker that was supporting me actually just made me accountable. I was like, oh, it'd be cool to like create something. She's like, what are you going to do by next week to make that happen? And
Mm.
then that, like that new purpose, I went home and started building. And that purpose just pulled me forward in a whole new way as well. So it was the combination of the day to day tools and then the purpose that just like my symptoms were the same, but I emotionally felt completely transformed. So that's kind of how it all came to be.
I love that. And I think you bring up a really good point, and that I think I want to touch a bit deeper on is this concept of acceptance. Because when a concussion happens, it's not planned. And change is hard enough for the average human to begin with. And a lot of the time, for the average human, when we're thinking about changing something, right, we have and then we move into action in all these different places. Well, when we get a concussion, you don't get any of that. Life's just different. And I think some people, like, it's very natural to have that anger, that you had. And there's this context around like anger is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
But for some reason, there's this context of like, I shouldn't be angry, or like anger is a terrible thing. That's like, no, you need to feel that emotion and you need to be able to process that emotion and move through that emotion into that place of acceptance. But acceptance is not accepting that this is how I have to be for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And I think that this is where some disconnection comes in for people who continuously fight that acceptance piece
Yeah.
and that have create this own internal battle of themselves. Is that acceptance isn't saying that you're not accepting defeat.
Mhm.
You're not accepting that this is the way you're going to be for the rest of your life. You're accepting that this is this in this moment. This happened, and I can still move in whatever direction I choose to see fit. I would love to hear what else you have to say just around that concept of acceptance for people, because this is a
Yeah,
really hard spot for so many people.
it is.
Yeah, I feel like when you did, like when you can reach that point, that's a pivotal changing moment right there.
Yeah.
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 So I'd love to, anything else, like I'd love to hear like your take on that.
Yeah. It's the word like surrender comes to me too, just like surrendering to what
Mm.
is. And one of the terms I use in the book is like the isness of my situation. Because I was just like
Oh, I love
fighting what is. Like I was just like, but no, like you don't understand. And it's like, I don't know, yes, this is what it is. And then I love that distinction that you're saying. It doesn't mean that this is what it is forever. It doesn't
that.
mean
Mm-mm.
all of these other things. It just is the right now. Like, yes, this is the right now. And that's okay. like to let that go. And there's like the freedom in that. There's like an exhale in that, like, I don't like it, but it is, and it's okay. And then we can kind of start to build a little plan for moving forward or see what we want to do as the next step when we've let go of like that resistance. There's a lot of the
Mhm.
tension is in that resistance to what is.
I love that. So where, again, talk me through your story a little bit. And so you were the co-founder of Revive and Thrive Wellbeing, which is, that's where you do coaching and programs to help people. When did that start?
Yeah. So that was initiated with that, like that initial session with the social worker. And she's like, okay, like, what are you going to do by next week? And that week, I kind of got to work on creating this. And again, it's all based on science, it's based
Mhm.
on this field of applied positive psychology, but adding all of the elements that are or that is the post concussion experience, like all of the things that we know that we have in common. Sure, we have a concussion, but we'll probably be better in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or oh my gosh, how and then it's an invisible injury, so people don't understand you and believe you, and you can't do all the things. So all of those aspects that I'm familiar with are wrapped up in that program to help us understand both well-being science and to feel understood, and some specific tools that apply to situations that arise around that. That could be around the social experience, right? Around building
Yeah.
relationships or how to communicate with those around us around it. So that's really where that started, like
Okay.
baby steps. I ran like
Yeah.
a 4-week course with some people online. Like I just found like a free, okay, we're doing this. And then it started to grow from there with my business partner, occupational therapist, and we kind of started
Okay.
to build a more comprehensive program that includes mindfulness and things like that,
Oh, I love it.
meditations.
It sounds amazing. So now where and at what point did you decide to write a book?
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing too. So as I mentioned, like it was before the concussion, I was struggling with other things,
Mhm.
and then I was starting to do better, feel better, learning positive psychology. So the book actually started as a totally different title and totally different like topic, but it was actually for supporting people that were living with Lyme disease with the skills
Okay.
of well-being science and positive psychology. So it was
Okay.
around that. Then concussion happened, couldn't write for a couple of years, couldn't like physically, it would hurt to like think, and I wasn't in the mood. And, now I'm dealing with a whole new thing, but I decided to revisit it about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And then it was like, okay, new book. So it's got like elements, some core elements, because this is about life and struggle, right? But
Mhm.
then totally revamped it, all now about concussion and the post concussion experience, and then adding all of those elements from my own experience that I now can speak to and had from my experience.
How was the process of writing this for you? Like, what did you emotionally go through and experience as you were writing this book to help other people?
Like it felt very like empowering for me. Like there was this drive and this
Mhm.
need to know as I was writing it, just feeling the impact of it, because I knew, like, you know how it is with writing, like you start to clarify your own ideas further, and you start to, and then even pulling out, finding it's all research based, it's got tons of citations in it. So even diving deeper into the research felt even more like empowering. So it just felt like I need to get this out there. Like I know this is going to be important and helpful, and it's helpful for me as I'm writing it too. Like this is stuff I'm dealing with every day, and this is life stuff, right? That the
Yeah.
regardless of it's a brain injury or just whatever is going on in our lives, it's about working with adversity. It's about working with our own thoughts. It's about building connections. It's about appreciating, like, where do I want to put my attention today? And how am I going to talk to myself in moments of struggle? So it brings in a lot of that, like the self compassion piece, and ways that make it useful and tangible for us to apply in day to day life. So it was fun. Like, even my partner, when he read it, like, just, he doesn't have a brain injury, but he was just like, oh, like, I see it, like, this is really useful day-to-day stuff.
I have like goosebumps as you talk about it. I love this. I have Lena's book sitting on my kitchen table, and I was very honest with her. I'm like, my goal was to at least like be able to skim it before this podcast interview. And I haven't been able to. Like, I flipped through it, but I'm like, I'm really excited to read it because true, like as you're talking about all these pieces, it applies to so much more than just concussion. so much more than, and I say, and you probably say something similar, but I say this to my clients all the time, the tools that we teach you in concussion recovery beyond, because similar in the sense of like, obviously most people come fly here to work with me for the, I say the physiology, the systems rehab piece. But when you work with me in a virtual capacity, it's very much mindset, lifestyle, all like reframing, all these other pieces that are as important, and in some cases even more important than the other piece of what I bring to the table for my clients. And I say to them when we're talking in our, like in mini school or one-on-one, I say, the things that we teach you, and I say we collectively, like those of us that inspire, motivate, empower people on a concussion journey, we teach them to you be on this journey because it's truly what helps you start to move forward and move ahead. However, don't stop doing them when you start feeling better, because these things, and like the things you're talking, like these are the things that become your superpowers for continued optimization in life as a whole. Right? Like when you look at high performance coaching for entrepreneurs and for things like that, these are the things that they're being taught to optimize their own lives, to flourish, to shine, to do all these pieces. And I feel like one of the only like the major distinguishing difference is when you're on a healing journey, you need to be doing these things because this is what starts to move you forward in that process towards finding your new you, whoever that might be. But don't stop doing it once you get there. Like, I love it. Here's a question for you. So whether this went through your brain on the beginning of your healing journey or not, I'm curious to know. And then I would love to know what you would say to Lina back then. We hear all the time, I just want to feel like my old self. Or I just want to be like I was. And I often say to my clients, the person you would have been today, whether this happened or not, is not who you were when this happened. There would have been an evolution of who you are. And so while I can appreciate not wanting to have symptoms and to wanting to feel healthy, you don't want to be who you were, because there's also so much underlying that you have learned, and courage and bravery and resiliency that's come through this journey for you. I would say my clients on the healing journey are some of the most courageous people I know. What would you say to the person, Lina, who's like, I just want to be my old self? And did you ever say that to yourself?
Yes, big time. Especially like that little window, like I talked about in this book. Like I had just moved to the new city. I was like starting to live my best life. I had this like 6-month process of like, I'm not feeling sick anymore. Like I like creative, all these wonderful things. And then to have that like stop, like I was writing play. It was just like this channel of joy. And then this happened. And it was how, hence the anger. So of course I wanted that back, to feel that again. And at the same time, just as you're saying, and in positive psychology, they call that post-traumatic growth. And there is so much growth going through that struggle, and the perspective on everything changes. Like there is no way that I could appreciate community and friendship, or even the little things that I add to my day-to-day experience of like going for morning walks and like taking the time to like look at like the leaves right now are absolutely stunning, right? To really have a sense of that appreciation for the day-to-day moments that wasn't as there before. And so it's just like, all of these things, knowing that these things are the things that make us stronger, make us more resilient, and make us appreciate what we have so much more after. So hang in there, Lina, 2018, 2019, like that incredible isolation that I felt for so long is what allows me to feel and prioritize community and friendship and love and all of that. So that's just part of the journey, right? And just seeing it all as a journey experience, right? Like just life, like this is life, this is life, this is life.
Yeah. Walk us through just a little bit. If someone goes to download the audiobook or purchase the book, P.S. everyone listening, we will be dropping links below in the show notes that you can get Lina's book. What can someone expect when they pick up or order your book?
So a big part of the book, aside from learning some of the science, some of the research, but in like the most practical hands-on way, it's also, I'd like to emphasize, like, it's short.
It's
Like,
tiny, guys.
it's
Yeah, it's
tiny.
tiny.
It was intentionally tiny. Like, I know, I get it, right? It has to be small, but it's jam packed, and it's also got tasks after each little
Okay.
chapter. So there's things to do. And as I say in like the intro, it's like, you want to actually do the things. It's cool.
Absolutely.
Reading about like all this stuff is really cool, but it's not the same as actually doing them. So what you're
I
going to
love that.
get is some of the research, some of the science, and it's cool stuff. Like, you'll find that it's practical knowledge and practical research stuff that you can apply to day life, but it's also easy checklists, things that you can do in your day-to-day life to start feeling better, in like those little tweaks day to day, and ways to talk to
Oh.
yourself, ways to just move around in the world. Yeah.
Lina, are you going to launch a coaching cohort that goes in conjunction with your book?
Hey, that's a good idea, Natasha. I mean, I could absolutely do that. That's something, yeah. I mean, I've got the course, right? I've got the Learn to
You d-
Thrive with Post Concussion
Yeah,
Syndrome course, which is something that we've created. I also have like the coaching set up that we can book coaching. But I think that's a really great idea to actually put something to go along with the book. So I'm going to think on that a little bit more, Natasha. And I think that's
I'm
great.
hearing you
Yeah.
talking about it, and like we both know the power of community, which you
Yeah.
have in your other courses. But anyways, just gonna plant
Yeah.
that. I'm just gonna plant that
No,
seed
that's
for you.
awesome. Thank you.
My dear, if you had to leave our listeners with one thing, one thought that are still on this journey and it's taking longer than they thought,
Yeah.
and there's definitely some frustrations for sure, what would you want to say to them?
I think that the main thing that I like to kind of emphasize in the book too is like, a lot of our day-to-day life and well-being comes to where we're putting our attention. And it's so easy to put our attention on all of the things that we don't have, all of the things that we wish we have, the pain, the ache, that's where our attention naturally goes. And just to start little by little saying, where do I want to put my attention today? Right? Where would we like to put our attention? What brings me a little bit more joy? That there's a lot of power in that, a lot more than we may think. And that could be one of the very powerful ways that we can start shifting that dial. And at the same time, there's nothing in anything that I say and believe in that it's bad to feel bad. Like, we've got to feel bad sometimes. We've got to feel bad sometimes for a
If we
really
don't
long
feel
time.
bad, we don't know what feeling good feels like.
Exactly. And what I like to say is, at some point, if we're like, okay, you know what? I don't want to. Like, when we feel like we want to say, I'm done with feeling bad for today, I want to do something different, we have the power and we have the tools to do that, and to support us in those little ways. So all of that makes a really big difference in recovery. I know that the deep isolation from it, I'm 6 years out now. And just 2 weeks ago, I had a pretty big setback that I'm still feeling. And, this is part of my day to day life still. And of course, I'm miles ahead of where I was before, but it's,
Mhm.
it's all part of that human experience, right? And we're going to
Yeah.
get through it.
Oh, Lina, thank you so much for being here today. You are like a shining light. And I don't know if you know that, but like you radiate so much amazing energy and it's just beautiful. So thank you. And I'm so excited that the listeners get to hear your voice and feel that and hear that from you too, because it like permeates through the screen.
Mm.
So we're going to drop your links below, but if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Mm-hmm. So I've got the book website is authorlinamaria.com, or just emailing me, lina@linamaria.ca, and we'll put in the show notes as well. Yeah, that's also
Amazing.
revive and thrive wellbeing.com is the website for the course.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here, for everything that you do, for writing this book. I can't actually, I'm like even more excited to go look at it now than I was before. And honestly, just for the gift that you bring this space.
Thank you, Natasha. And thank you for all the amazing work you're doing. So, so needed in the world. So appreciated.
My pleasure. All right, my friends, drop to the show notes below. Check out Lina's website. Check out her Instagram. We'll put all the contact information below. Get her book, audio or paper, whichever one is going to serve you the most so that you can A, digest it, and B, do the work. And until next week, we will see you soon. Bye-bye. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.